So now it is my great privilege to introduce our featured speaker for the evening. Ryan Bomberger has a rather unique perspective on the innate nature of purpose. His biological mother was raped, yet courageously gave him a chance to live and the beautiful gift of adoption. He was adopted at 6 weeks of age and grew up in a loving, multiracial Christian family of 15. With siblings of varying ethnicities, and 10 of the 13 children in this remarkable family having been adopted, Ryan grew up with a great appreciation for diversity, among other things, I'm sure, getting that first plate that was put on the table for dinner, maybe. Ryan's life defies the myth of the unwanted child, as he was adopted, loved, and obviously has flourished. Today, Ryan is an Emmy Award-winning Creative Professional who founded the Radiance Foundation, a life-affirming 501c3 nonprofit, along with his wife, Bethany. He is a factivist, F-A-C-T, an international public speaker, a columnist, educator, broadcast media designer, producer, and author of the powerful book, Not Equal: Civil Rights Gone Wrong. He and Bethany have also fairly recently co-authored the groundbreaking children's books, She is She, and just recently, He is He. Correct? That came out last fall? Okay, sorry. It was published and became publicly available last year, so sorry. Well, and at the conclusion of our dinner, you will have an opportunity to purchase copies of Ryan's books at the table in the back, and also to meet Ryan as you depart, so please consider taking advantage of that. Ryan and Bethany are the proud homeschooling parents of 4 amazing children, 2 of whom were adopted. They are his daily inspiration in illuminating that every life has God-given purpose. Friends, there is so much more I could say about this amazing brother in Christ, but I will let you now hear it from him directly. Please help me welcome my friend Ryan Bomberger.
Good evening, everybody. Who feels alive in here? How about the people in the back? You didn't look too alive. Okay. All right, just making sure there's a pulse. It is awesome to be here, John. Thank you to you and your whole team at NC Family. Thank you for what you guys do behind the scenes. There are so many people around us who have no idea the inner workings of what happens in their state assemblies and all the craziness, and you guys endure it. I just have to give kudos to lobbyists, because that takes a special kind of person to endure so much of that. But it's great to be here, to be able to talk about the things that I'm really passionate about. Tonight, I'm going to talk about shifting culture, and I'm going to talk about some of the issues that NC Family and the Radiance Foundation and many other organizations that we partner together with are very passionate about. So what we do is we have this framework called L.I.F.E principles. If we could, there we are, L.I.F E principles, and we apply this to pretty much any moral issue. It's interesting when I hear pastors say, I don't talk about these issues, I don't talk about politics, I don't talk about these things. Well, it's odd, because everything is first spiritual and moral, and politics is how we solve some of the issues. Policy, good policy, is how we solve some of the issue. But no pastor should be afraid to touch on all these issues. And so we love talking about these things. My wife and I started the Radiance Foundation a few years ago when this was, okay, it's not a few years ago now, because it was 2009. I don't know if you remember, but the economy was like booming in 2009. Anybody remember that? It wasn't booming. It was crazy. And we left our jobs. My wife was a teacher. She worked full-time as an educator in both public and private school. And I worked as a creative director in the ad agency world for 13 years, each of us. And we wanted to do something to address these culture-shaping issues. So we started the Radiance Foundation to do 3 things: to illuminate, educate, and to motivate. To illuminate the truth that every human life, planned or unplanned, has God-given purpose. And then we want to educate people about all the easy topics, all the ones that are so simple to talk about Abortion, racism, gender confusion, free speech, religious liberty, basically the war on common sense. How many of you know that there is a war being waged right now on common sense? And then, of course, we want to then motivate people. How many of you are good, by show of hands, in motivating people? 2 people. That's depressing. Self-esteem seminar after this, John. But see, what good is our knowledge? What good is our faith if we don't put it into action? So we started this organization because we knew that even though we had no money, no connections, we knew that God could do something with that. Because when God calls you to do something, he's going to equip and enable you to do that. So we decided as a fledgling organization, the first thing we were going to do is tackle 2 of the easiest topics possible, race and abortion, and combine them. And we were based in Atlanta at the time, so we did a billboard campaign called Endangered Species, Black Children and Endangered Species, TooManyAborted.com. And let's just say media went crazy. I was called all kinds of things. I learned a lot of things about my mom I never knew from strangers who sent really nice messages. Anyway, we put about 500 billboards around the country. You can see just some of them here, just dealing with the devastation of abortion. And it's devastating no matter the hue of skin, but statistically, no more devastating than in the black community, where more black lives are aborted than born alive. In the city where Planned Parenthood was, I would say birthed, but I'd rather use the word spawned, in Manhattan, in New York City, more black babies are aborted than born alive. For every 1,000 born alive, 1,029 are aborted. The only demographic that has that kind of statistic. And so we decided that we were going to tackle those things. And so you can see some of these billboards here. That one was in Los Angeles. It's a really conservative city if you've never been there. Okay, not at all. But these were some of the billboards that we felt like we had to break through some of that cultural noise. And, you know, at the time, people talk about, oh, Black Lives Matter, Black Lives Matter. Well, yeah, they matter. They matter in and out of the womb. And so we challenged that. We challenged NAACP, which I'll talk about a little later. The NAACP actually called this billboard racist, and a subsequent billboard called Black and Beautiful, TooManyAborted.com, racist, and said that it gives the false impression that Planned Parenthood kills black babies. They kill black babies, white babies, and every hue in between. Over 380,000, actually 392,000 last year. And so, being the factivist that I am, I decided I was going to write an article about the NAACP's position on abortion. And I called it the National Association for the Abortion of Colored People. And let's just say they didn't like it. So they sued me, they sued the Radiance Foundation. I'll tell you more about that later. There are times in this fight where you will be put in a position that you don't want to be in. It's not easy to be hated. By the way, just reminder, go into scripture, because when you're hated, just remember that Jesus said, hey, if the world hates you, remember they hated me first. I thought I was going into this thing with this cute family story and this adoption story with, 9 other siblings who were adopted, and I thought everyone would love me. I thought news media would love me, and they don't. Certain news media on the right. But we continue to create content to be able to talk about culture shifting issues, see some of the topics. We have spoken in so many different colleges, about 100 colleges or more. Harvard, University of Notre Dame, UT Austin, where I was smoke bombed out of the auditorium. That was fun. Thank you, Antifa. We've been loved, we've been hated, actually at places that you would think would be aligned with what we do. Wheaton College, for instance. That smeared me because I dared to say that the Black Lives Matter movement was not in line with a biblical worldview. How can a movement that disparages fathers, that doesn't see family as the central foundation to every society, that is radically pro-abortion, that's radically pro-LGBTQ++, how can that possibly be aligned? So, and also, we mentioned, these are some of the graphics you can see, Radiance.Life, the books. How crazy is it in 2025 that we're the controversial ones because we say he is he and she is she? How insane is that? We're actually based in Loudoun County, Virginia. Have you ever heard of Loudoun County? Yeah, that one. School board's gone wild. That is where we live. And that was actually part of the inspiration for this because they have something called Policy 8040, where despite the fact that parents are the ones who, children belong to parents. They don't belong to the state. But parents have no rights. in our own school, in our own public school system. So these are just some of the things, some of the tools that we create so that we can illuminate, educate, and motivate. So when I talk about life principles, I break this down into an acronym, and the L, which is the most important part, stands for love. That we are called to love one another. And we know in John 13:34, it says, "A new command I give to you, love one another as I have loved you, so you must love one another." Now, I have 12 siblings. Anybody have a sibling here? You know sometimes it's hard to love your sibling. I was going to say spouse, because I don't want anybody raising their hands. It's not easy. We're called to love one another, not just love the ones that you love the ones that you would love to hate. But we're called to love one another. And so that is first and foremost the most important thing when we talk about all of these issues. And how do we carry that out? As someone who crafts messaging, it's easy to call people names. It's easy to demonize people. But it's really hard to talk substance about an issue and still keep intact the dignity of the other person. It's a challenge. I know I've been loved like crazy by my parents, so I had a great example of those who poured into me, even when perhaps I wasn't the best child ever. I'm just saying, I was a stubborn child, a bullheaded child. Does anybody have one? If your child's here, please don't raise your hand. But you don't know what to do with that stuff. You feel like it's going to kill you. I would just encourage you to just hold on about 25, 30 years, and it will turn into something good, I promise. But this is my family. When I talk about love, it was love that made us a family. And this was actually the original Bombergers. These are my first three siblings. I call them the homemade ones. And so people will say, well, wait a minute, what inspired your parents to adopt? They had 3 kids, 5 family members. That's good. But see, there are 2 things that motivated my mom to want to adopt: love and brokenness. See, she was placed in a children's home for an entire year at the age of 5. And isn't it amazing how we underestimate children, the way that they receive and they perceive the world? But at the age of 5, my mom was placed in a children's home, and that's where she got the heart to adopt. Because other kids didn't have their parents visit them, but at least her parents did during that time. But it radically changed a 5-year-old. And then she met the most amazing man that I've ever known, my dad, and he was on the same wavelength, because if you're going to adopt 10 kids, you should probably be on the same wavelength. This is the first moment that my mom was able to hold me. I was cute at one point in my life. But this is, you kind of like, you hear that phrase, a picture's worth 1,000 words. But sometimes you still have to explain the picture. What you can't know from this picture is that the reason why my mom went into that home was that she had an alcoholic father. He was emotionally and psychologically abusive. And my mom, despite what she went through in her childhood, still tried to connect with her dad. She still loved him. And she knew the only way that he would experience wholeness and healing would be through Jesus. So she never gave up on him. And he was involved with the first 5 Bombergers. I mean, the Bomberger family of 5. But the moment they talked about adopting me, I don't know if you noticed, but I'm brown. I'm actually a whole lot of things. I'm white, black, I'm Ukrainian, Nigerian, British, German, Irish, Portuguese, Spanish, more Native American than Elizabeth Warren. I'll tell you that much. Just saying. But the moment they talked about adopting me, and my mom knew her father was so broken, but didn't realize he was also tragically racist. And he said, cleaning up the language here, if you bring that black child into your home, you're going to ruin your family. And so my parents had to make a very hard decision, but they made a very good decision because they chose me. Thank you, Mom and Dad. But my mom literally had to lose a father in order to gain a son. And you don't see that. You don't know that from this picture. Self-sacrifice unleashes purpose. I am who I am because of my mom. I am who I am because of my dad. Oh my gosh. I mean, he could have lived a normal life, whatever a normal life is. I don't know what that is, but he chose to live an extraordinary one instead. And this is actually me at one. We were in Canada at the time, and my dad, man, he's a man who loved Jesus. And when you love Jesus, the natural outflow of that is loving people. I mean, he loved all of us. There was no distinction between biological and adopted child. Although I will say, I was definitely the favorite in the family. But my dad was the same man at home as he was outside of the home. I mean, my parents poured themselves into us. In fact, this is actually this is one of my favorite pictures, because not like today where you can have tens and tens of thousands, all you college age students, tens and tens of thousands of pictures. I have one picture from then. And so when we did our book, He Is He, we just kind of illustrated this moment. And it's from the book where it says, he's a son, he's a brother, he's a father, not a mother. Which we shouldn't have to say that, but it's 2025. But there's a tribute in the back of that book to him, because he passed away during the height of COVID. Some of you may have lost loved ones. 2020 was not my favorite year. 2021 was not my favorite year. Those were rough times. My dad actually died on the anniversary of Roe v. Wade. I feel like his love and his life redeems that tragic day for me. I mean, he's the most pro-life man I've ever known. I mean, I love when I hear that bumper sticker mantra, pro-lifers don't care about people after they're born. I think my parents qualify for people who care about people after they're born. It's the insanity. I just thank God that my parents didn't listen to the naysayers, didn't listen to people say, well, why would you bring down the quality of your family's life with a disabled child? Or how are you going to love a child who doesn't look like you? I didn't realize you had to be the same color to love somebody. And I thank God that my parents rejected that nonsense. This is actually an early Bomberger family photo, but one of the few articles that my parents agreed to do an interview. This is when we were still a small family of 8. But you can see here the journalist actually understood what adoption was. And it says here, unwanted children find they're wanted. See, I don't believe that there's any such thing as an unwanted child, that everyone is wanted by someone. And that's me in the collared shirt. I was a handful. I'm still apologizing to my mom. I got like another 30 years of apologies ahead of me. But this picture encapsulates what happens when God calls you to do something, when God calls you to shift culture. My parents weren't activists in any way. They just knew that they were called to love those that the world so easily discards. So let me show you. This is all of my siblings. And it's almost like everybody in the picture's got afros. I mean, everyone. White, black, brown. But this is all the Bomberger kids and my parents. You can see, obviously, we don't really look alike. We're white, black, Native American, Vietnamese, able, disabled. Some of us were adopted as babies, some as toddlers, some as teens out of the foster care system. By the way, Simone Biles, you know the name. Her story is amazing. The world's most decorated gymnast. She was adopted and loved out of the foster care system by her grandparents. And several years ago, sadly, on Instagram, she announced that she's pro-abortion, that she's pro-choice. And she talked about in the same post how adoption's really expensive and no child should ever go through trauma. First of all, I think we live in a culture that fixates on trauma too much. Trauma should be a reference point, not a resting place. And I will tell you this, but she was saying that it's better for someone not to have endured the pain of foster care or the pain of separation or the pain of neglect. Look, nobody is better off dead. We're all better off loved. And in our family, 100% better off loved and loved like crazy. And now I want to show you now an expanded picture. So this is now all my family, my brothers, my sisters, their spouses, their children, and one grandma who's turning 101, actually, in 2 more months. If you ever watched SNL, that Molly Shannon thing, like, I'm 50, that's my grandma. I think she's going to live until she's 150. But this is my whole family, and this is what supposedly unwanted looks like. That's all of us. Actually, almost all of us. That was all of us. Now, I think it's 9 years ago. So there are now 24 more lives added to this picture since this was taken, through new births, new adoptions, new marriages, all because God called an amazing woman, my mom's name is Andrea, an amazing man, Henry, both of whom just feel like they're just ordinary people, but called them to extraordinary things. And they didn't listen to the world. They didn't listen to the doubters, but they listened to God's voice. And what's amazing is I have nieces and nephews who are now adoptive parents. that legacy of love continues. Now, this picture is possible because of birth mothers. And I love the story from the study center. It's amazing when someone grasps a few words and how it can change their lives. The young mama who could have had a different outcome because someone took the time to actually put that message in that center. And I believe that someone put messages of hope and spoke life into many of these birth moms. This picture wouldn't be possible without birth parents choosing to be stronger than their circumstances, like my birth mom. So years ago, I tried to figure out, how do I thank my birth mom? What do I even say to someone who went through 9 months of a traumatic pregnancy? And so as a creative, I wrote the lyrics, I sang the lyrics, and I thought, man, if I never see her, maybe some way, somehow, she'll see this online. But I wanted her to understand how grateful her birth son was, that she not only endured those 9 very, very traumatic months, but she started these reverberations, beautiful reverberations for generations that she never could have fully understood. So I figured maybe some way, somehow she would see this. And so I crafted this. It shows all the things I've been able to become in my life by the grace of God and her singular decision. And so this is my tribute to a really courageous birth mom.
You couldn't see what I would be. It wasn't part of your plan. Stronger than your circumstance, you gave my life a chance, touching the future before it began. You're the reason I am here. I know deep down in my soul, my life has purpose. I know deep down in my soul, my life has purpose.
That's my... I'm the 1% that's used 100% of the time to justify abortion. Anytime we have conversations about abortion, they inevitably lead to that question, what about rape? But the circumstances of our conception never change the condition of our worth. I mean, did anybody in here control the circumstances of their conception? I thought you were raising your hand on the back table. I was like, that'd be weird. But nobody does, yet we pretend that we can be arbiters of human value. So the L in life, love one another. The I is identify the lie. Without truth, we can't know what the lie is. It's a shame we look up some of the studies from George Barna, really fascinating about Christian worldview, about how only 6% of those who claim to be Christians, 7 out of 10 Americans who identify as Christians, but only 6% have a biblical worldview. It's why we have such a hard time with people. You wonder, like, why aren't they embracing this? Why aren't they running after that? Because they don't have the rock-solid biblical worldview. Ephesians 4:14, one of my favorite verses, says, then we will no longer be immature like children, and we won't be tossed and blown about by every wind of new teaching. We will not be influenced when people try to trick us with lies so clever they sound like the truth. Oh my goodness, that is the age we live in. Like, for instance, abortion is healthcare. Let's identify the lie. Abortion is healthcare, and then abortion is love. Love of what? Love of exploitation? Love of violence? Love of profiting from fear? I mean, abortion is healthcare. We heard this, throughout COVID. Abortion is essential. What stayed open? Abortion mills. What closed? Many people's businesses. But abortion is not healthcare. Let me put it in this context. If abortion is healthcare, then slavery was job care. Yep, it's amazing what we do with euphemisms. Kind of like today's feminism. I mean, true feminists, like Susan B. Anthony, called abortion, these are her words, child murder. But yet we want to dance around, we want to say it's so nuanced, and we can't even admit, even with things as drastic as partial birth abortion, some people can't even admit, wait a minute, this is barbaric. I mean, it all is. Anytime you destroy the image of God, no matter, I mean, no time is the right time to kill an innocent human life. I'll put it that way. Fake feminism, it's taken hold. In fact, Planned Parenthood, of course, is the leader of this sort of fake feminism, that somehow you're equal when you have an abortion. That's what makes women equal. So I decided sometimes you have to kind of just highlight the ridiculousness of the mindset out there. In fact, once we did a promo that had a Motown sort of song about eugenics. I mean, you can't really laugh about these things, but you can point out the ridiculousness of it. So I had my daughter join in this promo, just pointing out fake feminism. You might sing it the rest of the night. I don't know. We'll see.
They love to tell ya abortion's so good for ya. Just pay a fee and get equality. Their fraud's extensive, their lies defenseless. Planned Parenthood's been counting for a century. It's fake feminism. It's fake feminism. It's fake feminism. They don't want you to know. It's fake feminism. It's fake feminism. It's fake feminism. All they want is your dough.
This is basic health care.
Thousands of women die before Roe every year.
We're not political. Planned Parenthood, we're nonpartisan.
Planned Parenthood is
Fake feminism. Fake feminism. Fake feminism. They don't want you to know. It's fake feminism. It's fake feminism. It's fake feminism. All they want is your dough.
There you have it. So there's a jingle about fake feminism. I used to work in radio. I couldn't help myself. This number right here, 2,841. Does anybody know what that number represents? Yes. How many abortions occur each day? I don't like saying it how they occur. 2,841 abortions are committed every single day. But to kind of bring that into, I don't know, a local context, that number, that means every 30 days, the entire city of Greenville is destroyed. Every 30 days, that's the equivalent of the 2,841 every single day. And then you've got an industry that's not only mutilating, destroying lives in the womb, they're now doing it outside of the womb. We have seen this all across the United States. In fact, Planned Parenthood is now the second largest distributor of dangerous puberty blockers to minors. This is now their new business model. It's amazing when you profit off of confusion and fear, and actually solvable and curable confusion and fear. See, the word actually gives us identity, but the world gives us identity crisis. That's why I have this card back at our table. Please just take a bunch of free ones, but I think it's a great thing to remind yourself who God says you are. Of course, he said, I am. I mean, he's the only one who said that I am. Of course, then Jesus then repeated that. But this is referring to who God says I am. And we need those beautiful reminders. So we talk about the life principles. The F in life stands for fight the lie. That's why you guys are gathered here tonight. It's what NC family does all the time. How do we counter prevailing cultural narratives? How do we speak truth and act with love? Courage doesn't need a crowd. It just needs someone with conviction. Now, some of you on college campuses, you may not have the biggest crowds. And is it Samantha that was up here earlier saying, okay, so you got the 48%, you maybe didn't get the vast majority, but you're still doing what needs to be done on that campus. And even if you're the only one out there speaking that truth and love, do it. Ephesians 6, verses 10 and 11 said, finally be strong in the Lord and his mighty power. Put on the full armor of God, because this is a battle. This is a war. And if you feel like you don't need armor, then perhaps you're not the warrior God's looking for. And this is spiritual armor, of course. But you put on that full armor of God so that you can take your stand against the devil's scheme. And the devil is scheming all the time. And sometimes it's so sad to see how people are so easily used by him and not even realizing, like the movement that is all going all across the United States right now, trying to shut down pregnancy centers. It's led by, well, she's a sage of the age. I'm joking. It's Elizabeth Warren. Listen to this.
In Massachusetts right now, those crisis pregnancy centers that are there to fool people who are looking for pregnancy termination help outnumber true abortion clinics by 3 to 1. We need to shut them down here in Massachusetts, and we need to shut them down all around the country. You should not be able to torture a pregnant person like that.
First of all, there's so many things to unpack here. The fact that pregnancy centers outnumber abortion mills, can we give a hand clap for that? Because that's how you fight the lie. Also, oh my goodness, torture, pregnant person. What are pregnant people called? Thank you. Let's say it again. Say the word together. We aren't scared of it. It's ridiculous that we're living in this culture just trying to erase. I mean, pregnant person, birthing person. I can't even say some of the euphemisms that have been used. Governor Evers from Wisconsin, I'll say it, inseminated person. That's what they proposed a budget and wanted to replace the term mother with inseminated person. What? The word is woman. So the torture that they're talking about is this. In pregnancy centers, we worked with hundreds of pregnancy centers. I know the NC family works alongside of these pregnancy centers, and this is what love actually looks like. You won't find one of these inside of an abortion mill, ever. There's not one of these inside of a single Planned Parenthood. Because if you choose Parenthood, sorry, they don't have anything for you. But this is how we fight the lie. Also, there's so much going on in our culture. How else do we fight the lie? We talk about LGBTQ. I hate using the acronym because it's forever changing and forever growing. And I know God's heart is to redeem each and every one of us, and we have to constantly remember that we are all broken individuals in need of Jesus, right? But the movement itself that is trying to shut down adoption agencies, there's several states where, like in Illinois and New York, where if you are a foster parent, a prospective foster parent, but you are not LGBTQ affirming, you are ineligible to foster or adopt. And of course, now that things have changed politically, we don't have the risk of the so-called Equality Act passing, but that would have made it nationwide. We have to fight the lie. And I mentioned the NAACP case, which was so crazy because I wrote this article about the NAACP, and so they were suing us for trademark infringement, dilution, and confusion. First of all, they were saying that we were claiming to be the NAACP in the article that was super critical of the NAACP. That was weird. But when I'm on the witness stand, part of it was trademark confusion. They said we were confusing the public as to what NAACP stood for, which is the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. By the way, we're all colored people because no one's transparent. That aside. So I'm in the witness stand, and the judge, who's a lifetime member of the NAACP, didn't recuse himself, and whose wife's sister was the former president of the NAACP Legal Defense Fund, kept calling them the NCAA the whole way through the trial. And I'm like, you need to be here. We lost, by the way, at that federal court level. But this is one of the billboards, too, that the NAACP railed against us. And here's the thing. There are times that we are going to be faced with decisions, whether or not we choose to be courageous or whether we just kind of blend in with the crowd. I've never been good at blending in with the crowd. I've never been quiet. Maybe that's because I grew up with 12 other siblings. There was never a quiet moment in our house. But loving one another, identifying the lie, fighting the lie, and the most important, because none of that is worth it if we don't have this, the expectation. Expect the victory. And in Romans 8:37, it says this, "No, despite all these things, overwhelming victory is ours through Christ who loved us." We're not undercomers, we're overcomers, amen? So we went to court, federal court for 2 years. They were suing us for $800,000 plus. I think we had $800 at the time. So, yeah, that wasn't going to work out too well. But we did prevail. At the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals in Richmond, they reversed the lower court ruling, and we did win. I did want it to go to the Supreme Court, though, I will admit. But it was a unanimous decision. It was weird. In the hearing, the conservative justices even slammed us. I guess because they wanted to look like they weren't anti-NAACP. But we have to expect the victory. We have to go in. Now, that doesn't mean we're going to win every battle. But we have to go with the expectation that God can do so much more, exceedingly more than we ever expect or think. How about Roe? Whoever thought that under Donald Trump, first term, we all had opinions about Donald Trump, first term, correct? And to see the policies that came out of Trump, I was blown away. Whoever would have known that he would appoint justices to make that possible? Can we just say thank you, Lord, for that? Now I know in the state of North Carolina, I believe there's a 12-week ban. I'm going to work on whittling that down. But we're going to keep on fighting. I mean, in our state in Virginia, you're allowed to have an abortion throughout the pregnancy, entire pregnancy. So there's a lot of work to be done. Yes, Roe was overturned, and we can acknowledge that is a victory worth celebrating. But you know what? Evil is relentless. It's relentless, but good is even more persistent, especially good in God. Of course, God is good, so it's like saying the same thing. And see, family, also, I understand that several years ago, I think it was 2023, you overrode the governor's veto on some bills, right? Let me just make sure I get these bills right. The Parents' Bill of Rights, hand clap for that. Fairness in Women's Sports Act, and gender transitions for minors. Sometimes you wonder, how are we even fighting these battles? But like I said in the beginning, everything is first and foremost spiritual. It's not political. Don't let anybody scare you into being silent about something because they say that it's political. Just like guys, don't let anybody gender shame you into silence about abortion. I mean, it was 7 men in black robes who gave us the violence of Roe v. Wade. They had a voice. Why can't you? So the insanity that we're dealing with, this is from Planned Parenthood, these words, they were encouraging activists to teach kindergartners this, that your genitals don't make you a boy or a girl. Well, this is why we have to keep fighting in our public schools, actually in our private schools too, but we have to keep on fighting to protect our children. So when I talk about the life principles, love one another, identify the lie, fight the lie, and expect the victory. One of the biggest victories in my life, my personal life, is the story of actually how the Radiance Foundation came to be. The story of how Bethany and I came to be a couple. In fact, the short story is this. Bethany was a teacher in Philly, her last 3 years teaching in Philly, which she thought when she left teaching in Philly to homeschool, she thought homeschooling was going to be a lot easier. It's not. She longed for the riot lockdowns in Philly. But she was a teacher in her late 20s, had walked away from the Lord, got in a toxic relationship, only to walk away from that and find out that she was pregnant. And that set off a course of events. It's amazing what happens when you hold on to the truth. She was pressured by the biological father to abort. She was pressured by her fellow teachers who said, just abort it, not realizing that that baby was not an obstacle to her, but an opportunity for her to become more than she could ever imagine being. And so this is the short story in video form of that beautiful little girl who's the reason behind the name of the Radiance Foundation. someone say she's beautiful. She really is. My birth mom's courageous decision so many years ago caused beautiful reverberations that will last for generations. And these are my favorite reverberations is my family, Bethany, love of my life, my oldest son, Makai, my oldest daughter, Radiance, my youngest son, Justice, and my youngest daughter, Aaliyah. And we're a family of 4, where 3 of the 4 were unplanned, and all of them are loved like crazy. And today as a family, we're fighting for a culture of life, of biblically rooted identity, of school choice and parental rights. My kids come with me a lot of times in all of our events, and they understand the context of these issues. And we're fighting for a culture of common sense. And I love that my kids understand what is going on, and they can tie that and see that through a biblical lens. So tonight, when you give to NC Family, and when you give generously tonight to NC Family, you help make lives like mine and my family and the fight that we're all in possible. Thank you guys. God bless.